everyone, and welcome to the October 16th, 2012 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my privilege to call this meeting to order. It is our custom to begin each of our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, and tonight we have some very special guests who are going to assist us in the pledge. We have a number of scouts here from Troop 86 that hail from Lester School here in Downers Grove. Well, gentlemen, I would invite you to please come up to the front here. Assemble yourselves, and we're going to ask everyone to rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag is over here. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very well done. Thank you, gentlemen. And while I tell everyone about the copies of the agenda that are available to follow along with tonight's meeting, I'm going to ask you guys if anybody has any questions they want to ask the Village Council, because I know Commissioner Durkin has been itching for a scout question for some time, so I'll let you think about that. There are copies of our agenda for tonight's meeting on either side of the room. If you'd like to pick one up and follow along with us, I'd invite you to do so. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on our agenda this evening, as well as items of a general nature. So, Troop 86, any questions that you might want to pose to Village Council? No obligation. Just asking if you'd like to. Oh, I knew there'd be one. Would you come on up to our podium? Sure, I saw your hand up. Come up to our podium, please. Give us your name and the school that you attend, although we know it's Lester. And we'd love to hear your question. Only serious questions now.
Okay.
All right? So, good evening.
Hi, I'm Eamon O'Connell and I go to Leicester. And my question is, how many of you are lawyers? You said no,
We'll let you guess. He's the only lawyer.
Well, you know there's at least one.
Yeah.
The answer is one.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We have time for one more? Sure, come on up. Good job.
Everybody should ask a question.
This is no pressure. We're tough on issues, easy on people, Commissioner. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Lucas Lacheski, and who's the first mayor of Downers Grove?
Who is the first mayor?
Of Downers Grove.
His picture's out in the hallway.
These weren't canned. I'm impressed.
It wasn't Pierce Downer.
He was the founder.
Yes, but the answer you're seeing, this is the other thing that I always can say. I may not know the answer, but I can get you the answer. The answer is out in the hallway, right behind council chambers here. All the pictures of all the mayors from the history of Downers Grove, except for a few where there's a nameplate, are listed there. So the name of the first mayor and a picture are right outside. But very good question. We'll have to get you guys to work on the trivia book for Downers Grove. Well, thank you for coming, guys. I appreciate it. Good questions, and thanks for helping us with the pledge. And with that, we need to actually take a roll call and start our business. So may I have a roll call, please, from our fine village clerk?
Yes. Commissioner Rankin? Here. Commissioner Burnett?
Here.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner Schnell? Here. Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. And that brings us to item 3 on our agenda, which pertains to the minutes of prior council meetings. We have 2 sets of minutes for consideration and approval tonight. One set is from our October 6, 2012 budget workshop, and the other one is from our October 9, 2012 regular council meeting. Are there any questions, comments, changes, or corrections to either set of those minutes? Hearing none, and may I have a motion to approve them, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Those minutes are accepted. Approved. Thank you. That brings us to item 4 on our agenda, where we entertain comments from the public with respect to matters not appearing on tonight's agenda. So if there are any comments of a general nature, we would ask that you, like the scouts, come down to the podium, give us your name and address, and we'd welcome hearing from you. And we also have another special guest tonight. We have Mr. Michael Casa, who is the Executive Director of our Economic Development Corporation. Good evening, Mr. Casa.
Good evening. The Economic Development Corporation is located at 2001 Butterfield, Suite 120 here in Downers Grove. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, one of the premier companies in Downers Grove is a company called Flavor Chem. They're located over on Brook Drive in the Oak Grove Business Park, which is north of Butterfield. And on Friday, November 2nd at 9 a.m., they're going to have the dedication of their new 40,000 square foot liquid production facility. Flavor Chem is one of the premier companies in the world that develops scents and colors and flavors for Fortune 500 companies all over the country, all over the world, as a matter of fact. And they're going to be, again, dedicating their new facility. There'll be a brunch buffet afterward. All members of the council should have received an invitation. We'll be sending another one out tomorrow. Everyone here is welcome to attend. I hope we get a good turnout. This is a great company. They own 8 buildings in that business park. They've put a lot of money into their facilities and employ a lot of people in our town. And they're really just a first-rate firm. And I hope you can be there. And I know the mayor will be saying a few words at the event. Again, Friday, November 2nd at 9 a.m. And look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Casa. Any other questions from members of our audience of a general nature with respect to matters not appearing on our agenda tonight? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Hillary Deng, 433 Wilson Street. And actually, I'm just appearing also as co-president of the Downers Grove Woodridge Lisle League of Women Voters. First, I want to thank the village for allowing us to use your facility for our candidate forums. We had one on September 19th, and I just want to announce to everybody that the next forum is next week, Tuesday, the 23rd, beginning at 7 o'clock. This is for DuPage County. District 3, both the county board members and the Forest Preserve District candidates will be participating in the forum. And also just wanted to announce that our league is very proud that we have registered 609 voters in 2012.
Terrific.
We've been at 43 voter registration events in the area, including schools, senior citizen facilities, farmers markets, businesses, and just a variety of locations. Robbie Richards, our voter services chair, has been amazing. And 21 volunteers, 95 volunteer hours. So we're just very excited to announce that to the village and thank everybody for participating. And we staffed 3 mock elections, one at Downers Grove North, one at Westmont High School, and one at Bennett Academy. And we have been registering voters at all those schools as well. So I just wanted to announce that to the village and thank people for participating and volunteering, and hope we have a really good turnout for the October 23rd forum next week, starting here, right here at 7 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Thank you
you.
for sharing that, and thank you for all that you do to raise awareness with respect to the opportunities for folks to participate in these various forums and learn more about the issues and the candidates. And particularly thank you for your efforts in the voter registration area. That's obviously critical, especially at the high schools. I have to say that one of the things my wife and I did recently was registered our oldest son to vote, because he will turn 18 just in time to vote in this next election, and it's pretty cool. He's getting excited about it, that he's actually able to do something like that. Of course, it makes me feel really old, but it's a pretty important step in your civic duty, and it's pretty neat to see someone get registered and be able to vote for the first time and participate in their own government. So thank you for your efforts in that regard. Any other questions of a general nature? Hearing none, then we will move to item 5, public hearings. We have no public hearings tonight. And that takes us to item 6, our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any items on the consent agenda? Any questions or comments from any members of the village council with respect to any items appearing on the consent agenda? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, the consent agenda is approved unanimously. That brings us to item 7 on our agenda, which is our active agenda. We have 2 items for voting tonight, items 7A and 7B. We'll start with 7A. Do I have a motion to approve a redevelopment agreement with Greenscape Ventures LLC as presented?
Mayor Tully, I move to adopt an ordinance approving a redevelopment agreement between the Village of Downers Grove and Greenscape Ventures LLC as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from any members of the village council with respect to this item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, the matter is approved unanimously. Congratulations. Brings us to 7B. Do I have a motion to approve an ordinance amending parking and traffic provisions in municipal lots at the Belmont Station underpass and at local high schools as presented?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? We have one. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tom LeCrone, 545 Chicago Avenue. I'd just like to express my heartfelt feelings that that crosswalk that's proposed to go across Saratoga makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. You're just asking, you're trying to funnel the kids into there if they're going to cross there. It's not going to work. I just had to say that. I said it before, and I say it again tonight. That makes absolutely no sense. We don't know where it is, actually, precisely. And having lived on that corner, it utterly makes no sense whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeCrone. Any other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions from the council? Commissioner Schnell?
I want to second what Ms. LeCrone said. I said this when we were discussing this. I have a major problem with that crossing too, simply because I think it's going to be extremely dangerous for kids. Is there a way, my assumption is this is going to pass, is there a way that we can revisit that in 6 months or so, or a year, 6 months preferably, to see how it's going and to see if there are issues, or figure out a way to find out if there are issues with that? The high school kids are going to be coming over, but the junior high kids are going to be going that way too. And that's my concern is
The answer is yes, and not only will we do a 6-month review that is pretty standard practice, this area is also the subject of a neighborhood traffic study that's ongoing. So we'll put this in now. We believe, and TAP agreed, that it's better than the current situation, and it may not be optimal, and that's what we'll look at as we continue to study and monitor the area.
And when is the traffic study supposed to be done?
It started this fall, and it will probably go through the winter with recommendations in the winter or spring.
So winter of 2013 or?
This winter season, end of 12,
Oh,
beginning of 13.
Okay.
And
So-
I'm waiting for Andy Sikich to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it sounds like we're pretty good.
So that's the time that kids would be outside crossing?
Yeah, we'll have some time. As you know, that's a heavily used area for Saturday sports as well as weekday activities by both schools, so we'll begin to monitor right away. We have a pretty good understanding of the current patterns. They do cross in and around that location in an informal manner, so we'll continue to monitor.
It's not the crossing, it's the way they cross, I guess,
Right.
that concerns me. And with, I've said this last time, I don't want to belabor it, but my concern is if someone has to slam on their brakes in order to allow people to cross, even if you're going 25, you still have to, we could have some rear ends, people rear-ending people simply because they're not paying attention or on a cell phone or whatever it may be. So I think any of that information that can be gathered and then given to TAP, I think would be beneficial. Hope to God it doesn't happen, but if it does, giving that information to TAP, I think would be beneficial.
We will do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions from the council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Matter passes unanimously. That brings us to the end of our active agenda. Brings us to item 8 on our agenda, our first reading or the workshop portion of our meeting when we entertain matters that are being presented for action at a later point in time. We have 4 items on our first reading or workshop agenda tonight, and as is customary, I will turn it over for presentation to our village manager, Mr. Fielden.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. The first item on tonight's first reading agenda is consideration of an ordinance approving a sales tax rebate agreement with Napleton Gold Coast Imports. And here to explain this agreement is our president of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation, Michael Casson.
Thank you very much, Mayor Tully and Commissioners. Thank you. Tonight, I am pleased to announce an important project and present a sales tax rebate agreement for your consideration. Napleton Automotive Group is opening a new Aston Martin dealership in Downers Grove in the former Saab facility at 217 Ogden Avenue. Changes in the automotive industry have resulted in fewer dealerships and more competition among communities for those dealerships. The Village and the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation have worked together to attract and retain auto dealers. This strategy has included entering into sales tax rebate agreements to incent the dealerships to either locate a new facility or expand their existing facility in the village. Agreements have been entered into with Packey Webb Ford, Pugie Volkswagen, Hyundai, and Mazda, Ziegler Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram, and Bentley Perillo Motors. Napleton Automotive Group has 19 dealers in 3 states. Their product lines represent 12 different car manufacturers, including domestic, import, and Highline franchises. Edward Napleton launched this successful family business in 1931 when he opened a Buick service station in Chicago. Today, the 4th generation of Napletons are involved in the operation of the company. The proposed sales tax rebate agreement with Napleton Aston Martin includes the following provisions. Aston Martin shall make improvements to the property, including interior improvements and changes to the exterior signage as shown on the plans attached to the agreement. The improvements shall be completed no later than December 31, 2013. Aston Martin shall operate the automobile dealership for not less than 15 years from January 1st, 2013. The village shall keep all of the sales tax revenue generated on the first $3 million of taxable sales each year. The village shall rebate 50% of the sales tax revenue generated by the dealership in excess of the sales tax revenue generated on the first $3 million of taxable sales each year. Village shall make the rebate payments for a period of 10 years beginning January 1st, 2013. Village shall hold back 25% of the annual sales tax rebate payments if Aston Martin fails to continue to operate the dealership according to the terms of the agreement. The held back portion of the rebate payment will be forfeited. And if Aston Martin fails to continue to operate the dealership, they shall reimburse the village for all or a portion of the sales tax rebate payments made according to a schedule included in the agreement. This new Aston Martin dealership is projected to generate an additional $185,000 in annual sales tax revenue to the village. Here's a photo of a new Aston Martin Virage, which retails for $240,000. The Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation supports this project and the sales tax rebate agreement. I would like to thank the village manager and the village attorney for their expeditious work on this agreement. And I would like to acknowledge Rick Brandstatter, Director of Real Estate for the Napleton Automotive Group, who is with us tonight. Rick, on behalf of the Village of Downers Grove and the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation, thank you for making this important investment in our community, and welcome to Downers Grove. And I would be pleased to answer any questions you may have. And again, Rick is in the audience if you have any questions for him as well.
Well, thank you, Mr. Casa, and thank you for being here tonight. Obviously, this is a terrific project to bring this into our community. So this is terrific news for many reasons, a number of which you've hit upon. Let me ask if there are any questions from any members of the audience first with respect to this item, and then we'll turn it over to the village council. Any questions or comments of Mr. Casa or otherwise with respect to this item? Take it over to the village council. Commissioner Barnett.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm excited anytime we have a business that feels like Downers is a place they want to locate. And so thank you to our EDC and our staff for helping make that the case. I see nothing about this that doesn't excite me and make me want to vote for it. I just wanted to kind of comment and ask maybe the mayor and the manager to talk in a little more detail. I know I've heard the mayor give some speeches about 50% of something in the past. It's important.
Better than 100% of nothing.
Yeah, it's
an important part of that.
It's important to recognize that these agreements that we enter into are properly characterized when it's made clear that the rebates are components above and beyond what that facility or that site has generated in the past 12 months. So in this case, for instance, that $3 million number is an approximation of what that dealership has been doing. So the rebates, and this is true with other facilities, whether those facilities were vacant and dormant for 12 months or active as in some other fashion, the rebate agreements that this village has typically entered into are rebates to incentivize growth in our sales tax base as opposed to taking some of our existing sales tax and rebating it. And I wanted to make sure that was kind of clear for the public who doesn't see these maybe quite as often as the folks up here do.
Good point. Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from the council? Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, I just want to thank, you know, the Napleton family for bringing this to Downers Grove. This is a huge win for us. As many of you know that I stated when we were talking about the opportunity to bring in Bentley of Downers Grove, that there will be others to follow, and I really believe that this is another one that is following the high level of dealerships and the professional working relationships that we have with the dealerships that are attracting them to our community known as Downers Grove. So I'm extremely excited about this. I did tell my wife that this is on my Christmas wish, but based on the information I received, it's a little bit greater than what our giving gifts are. So I'll allow others to impose on these cars. I just ask that they're bought from Downers Grove. And I just want to congratulate the EDC and Michael Casa, because this is a huge win. I know you've been here a little less than a year, or right around a year. So to be able to bring in a quality product like this into our community, and if memory serves me correct, and I know how to Google correctly, this is the second dealership in the Chicago metropolitan area that will be selling an Aston Martin. So besides us, you'll be able to go to Lake Forest, but that's a little bit too far north. So great job. I look forward to supporting this, and you know, it's awesome. So thank you.
Other questions or comments? I'll just repeat what I said, and that is, this is very exciting. This is a terrific project that's coming to our town, and I think and congratulations to Mr. Casa, the EDC, all the board members, and everyone involved in the process of making it a reality. But just to pick up on what Commissioner Barnett said, it needs to be understood that the sales tax base is not something that just sort of exists, and if you just leave it alone, it will remain there. It needs to be tended to, and it needs to be grown, and it needs actually a significant amount of attention, especially these days. As I've said many times, and it should be apparent by now, is there is stiff competition out there amongst municipalities to draw businesses that will help grow their tax base so they don't have to grow their tax rate. And that competition can be rather fierce, and it's also understood that businesses in many instances have a lot of choices. So we need to be vigilant, we need to be aggressive in identifying and pursuing these opportunities, and so I applaud all the efforts that were behind making this one possible. The flip side of that is we don't do all those things at any cost. The overall arrangement has to make sense, and it has to be basically a win-win for all involved, and as Commissioner Barnett pointed out, people often question us as to why are you giving these guys a rebate? My goodness, look at them, they're selling $250,000 cars, what do you give them a rebate for? Well, they don't understand. We want them to be selling those cars in our community as opposed to a neighboring community. And this is all a rebate from the increment. So we are basically rebating something that we wouldn't otherwise have but for this arrangement. And there are other protections in the agreement so that if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, the village isn't out of pocket. So it really is a great opportunity for everyone involved. And it helps incentivize the project to come here in the first place, which is exactly what we want. So this is where the phrase 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing, because you're right, we could do nothing and watch the cars be sold down the street in another town, which is not what we want to have happen. So where these deals make sense, like this one, we welcome them with open arms and look forward to another exciting new business doing very well in Downers Grove for many years to come. And thanks again for everyone for making it possible.
Just one more comment. I think it's important to note, it's not only the terms of an agreement it's important that they be business friendly, you know, on the cost side, on what the terms are. But it's also how quickly you can get an agreement reached. And I had a call from another car dealership looking at another site in Downers, and he commented, both in the Packy Webb deal and wasn't even aware of this one, that you know, the staff at Village Hall turns these agreements over pretty fast. We don't waste people's time, and we put our cards on the table. Right. Those cards are pretty business friendly, I think. And I think that's important to note too. It's not just the terms and the cost. It's where we respect their time, and we want to grab those deals when they're hot.
It's a fair point. It's why, another reason why we put so much time and attention and energy into economic development and having good people behind those organizations, those processes, because yes, business people have choices, business people want to understand what the circumstances are, and they want to get a quick decision. And we have people in place who are able to do that because they know their stuff. as we've proven over and over again. So, good point.
Mayor,
Thank you.
can I add one thing?
Sure.
As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with the manager this afternoon in regards to the budget and what we expect this dealership to bring out, or bring in to us revenue side. If you look at 4-39 in our budget, the overall collection of sales tax from auto dealerships in Downers Grove in 2011, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, was $1.6 million aggregate. 50% of that, $800,000, came to Downers Grove. So if you look at those numbers, just those numbers alone, and the more of these dealerships we bring in, and the more of the higher-end cars like this one that we're talking about, these numbers will quickly grow. And we all know what 75% of our general fund is personnel. Well, these dollars help offset that. So, you know, again, it's definitely a win-win all across the board,
And those
especially
numbers-
with those numbers keep escalating. And I'm sorry, Dave, but once this economy does change and people are back buying Bentleys and these cars and all the other high-end, even the moderate cars for, that everybody else drives, I mean, those add up. They just got to sell 5 of them to make up for one of these, but, let's be honest.
And the
I'm sorry,
numbers-
Dave, go ahead.
And the numbers Commissioner Durkin is speaking of are only the incremental dollars that we're splitting. A lot of these car dealership agreements have bases measured in tens of millions of dollars, and so the numbers are even higher than that. I just want to echo that the strategy we put in place as a team, the Village and Economic Development Corporation, to be the destination for car dealerships has worked very well for us, and you can see it in our sales tax performance.
Good news all around. All right, we'll look forward to this coming forward to a vote if there are no other questions. Terrific. Well, then let's move to item 8B, please.
And speaking of expedited, customer-friendly approval processes, the next item on the agenda is an ordinance establishing provisions for lot consolidations, and our Director of Community Development is here to present background information on this item. Tom.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. An ordinance has been prepared adopting an amendment to Article 5 of the Subdivision Control Ordinance, and the amendment would create a new administrative process for lot consolidations as long as they meet village regulations. So what's being proposed, as I just said, it's an administrative approval process for lot consolidations and applications that already meet requirements. It will be faster for the customer, it will be less expensive for the customer, and we think there's tremendous advantage to that. And in fact, it takes a process that is at least 2 or 3 months long and brings it down to something that's maybe 2 weeks long. So it's a tremendous improvement for the customer seeking a lot consolidation. The other thing that the ordinance would do is set clear standards for lot consolidation approvals. Of course, it will have to meet the underlying zoning, the zoning ordinance, the subdivision control ordinance, and it would, as this body had agreed to a few years back, prohibit flag lots, and then would prohibit through lots as well. And it leaves open the possibility of the typical process that's in place right now, the Plan Commission recommendation to the Village Council approval process. But at this point, if this is approved, that would be left for applications that do not meet the requirements or they're appealing an administrative decision. So why are we proposing this? Well, of course, there is the improvement to customer service, but it's also consistent with the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. Comprehensive plan calls for encouragement of reinvestment for both commercial and residential properties. That usually means expansion of the building in some way, and when that happens, you need to meet the zoning ordinance requirement if you're crossing a lot line. You need to consolidate your lots to allow that to happen per the zoning ordinance. It's also anticipated that we would have an increase in the number of applications for this process due to the increase in development activity. And I've got some numbers for you in a second that speak to that. But it also, to a lesser degree, would help to accommodate some aspects of the stormwater utility where there is a base fee associated with each lot. And by combining lots, you could eliminate what really is a very small fee at that point, but that's just another added benefit. So over the last 5 years, we've brought 36 of these to you. And All of them have been approved, almost all of them without any comment, and it comes after a Plan Commission recommendation, of course. Most of the 36, and this speaks to the improved development activity, most of the 36 have occurred in the last 2 years. So you maybe have noticed some of these, and they generally go right through because they're, meeting all of the terms of the zoning ordinance, comprehensive plan, subdivision control ordinance, etc. So the staff is recommending approval. Again, it will allow a faster and cheaper lot consolidation process, and it will actually create 2 tiers of fees. One, if you do appeal and go through the Plan Commission process and bring it to Village Council because you've got a special circumstance or whatever, and then a cheaper fee for those, significantly less, smaller dollar amount for those who just need the approval, and we can grant that because they're meeting all of the conditions that need to be met. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dave Reiner. Any questions from the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments from the council? Commissioner Newstead?
So, for example, the 3 that we approved tonight on the consent agenda would be approved at the administration level and not have to go through Plan Commission and then the council, which would really, it turns around to be at least 2 weeks for the village council for first reading, and, well, not necessarily with the consent agenda, but at least 1 week. And then the Plan Commission notification, that's about a month, maybe more, after it's all said and done.
It's
so the process is pretty long.
Correct. It's at least 2 months after it's gotten through staff's hands, if all goes well.
So we're really expediting the request from our customers or residents as we move forward with
Very
this.
significantly, yes.
Thank you. I'm in full support of this for our next meeting. I think it's going to be a great way to get things moving for our residents a little bit quicker and give them the service that we can provide without having to go through all the yays and nays of the Plan Commission and the Village Council, which there haven't been any nays, so let's go for it.
What's not to like about a lot consolidation?
That's right.
Commissioner Rankin?
I'd just like to applaud staff for bringing this forward. I think this is a great way to save time for our residents, streamline the process, remove barriers, just be a more welcoming village for new development. So, great job.
Thank you, Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Take a slightly different take on this, if you don't mind. I know, for example, we have the lot consolidations tonight, and they seem to slip through fairly easily, and that's a good thing. And I do support making the process easier, maybe a little cheaper, a little friendlier. But I'm still debating with myself about having to make it strictly administrative approval. And I think in that process, we're losing some of the transparency, we're losing some of the public notice, some of the opportunities that could possibly arise somewhere down the line. I realize these are typically mechanical, but lot consolidations are lot consolidations. We've seen in the past, over the years, people wanting to split lots and in other instances. So while I do look forward to improving the process and making it friendlier, I think just making a pure administrative approval, that gives me some concern down the line. And maybe if there was a way to provide better public notice, maybe in the agenda, publicizing it as if it was on the consent agenda possibly, or just pushing it through to put it on a consent agenda. I mean, what does it take a few seconds to approve a consent agenda? Just getting it out there and having the public have the opportunity to comment if there are comments out there. And that's just a concern I have at this point. Rather than doing everything in the back, less transparent. It's one of my concerns. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Schnell?
I don't have a problem with doing it administratively. I do have a problem with the fact that there would be no notification to the neighbors, at least on either side of the proposed consolidated lots. having gone through when we used to have flag lots and the fact that neighbors didn't feel like they were notified and things that could happen, I think that just, if indeed we get an application, as part of the application process, notification to both neighbors, one is, it's just being good neighbors, but two, I think it helps to give a better understanding what might be happening next door to them. So I would prefer something like that to be in the administrative process that would go on. I'm not going to vote against it, but I think that we need to somehow at least notify neighbors on the sides so that the neighbors have an idea. So we don't all of a sudden have a rash of, what's going on in my neighborhood, why is, X, Y, and Z happening, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At least with going through the planning commission, there is a notification, people understand what's going on in their neighborhood. In this case, that wouldn't happen. So I don't know if we can do something about that or not, but it would be my preference to do something like that. So, anyway, that's it.
And I understand the point, and there might be something could be done just because we always tend to go way beyond and what any other community does, but keep in mind, unless I'm wrong, the lot consolidation may be handled administratively, but if there's going to be some project on the land, all the same notice requirements apply. So it's not as though something's going to be built and no one's not going to know about it. I mean, if you do a lot consolidation, even if you're doing a residential residence, you have to literally knock on the doors of all the people around and get them to sign a sheet. So there's going to be, I don't see anything's going to just pop up overnight without notice. The only thing would happen would be the lots would be consolidated, which I don't think is what people care about. What they care about is what's happening on the lot, which is the next step, and I don't understand that any of those notice requirements are changing one bit, unless I'm mistaken.
That, if a project can't go forward unless it's consolidated, again, I think it's just being as you hate using that word, but it's being as transparent as possible, and I think it's another. I think we're trying to be customer friendly, but we also have to be neighborly friendly. Right. So. Again, I agree that, if a project was on it, they have to notify it, has to go through the proper channels, et cetera, but.
Now, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm thinking out loud as to what notice would be, and for example, if. And
I'm not sure, because the manager and I have talked about this over the last week or so, and I'm not sure what it is either. I'm trying to do it so that not only we're streamlining the process and making this more customer friendly, but we're also looking towards the residents who live next to these consolidations and are trying to be friendly to them too. And I don't know, I don't know what the exact answer is. And there may not be an exact answer, but it's a concern.
Fair point. Commissioner Barnett.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm in full support of this, and I think it speaks to, I'm going to get off of the lot consolidation per se, but we are, Commissioner Durkin made the comment a few minutes ago that we're 75% personnel. I think it was 78 was the budget number estimated for 2013. This is another opportunity for lean. It's another opportunity to do more with less. It's an opportunity to take the burden off our staff and take the burden off our residents. There's the time factor that we're all aware of, but there's cost too. Every time you have a hearing, there's preparation, there's documentation, there's minutes, there's forwarding of all that stuff to the next body down the line. For our residents who are trying to do these things, they're usually, probably often is maybe a better choice of words, involve some sort of professional help for them. There's an architect involved, there's a builder involved, there's an attorney involved. This is not flag lots, this is not lot splits, this is not any of the building permits as the mayor suggested. This is consolidation requests that are in full keeping with every detail that this body has spent 3 years trying to encourage in various other pieces of legislation. We have gone to great lengths. Tom mentioned the stormwater issue, but there have been other things, whether it be minimum lot widths, whether it be setback rules. There's a list of things that we have spent certainly the last 3 years, probably the last 8, trying to set into place that encourage consolidation of lots. And so this is simply a matter of when somebody comes out there and says, we fully embrace and want to do the things you guys have encouraged us legislatively to do, and then we say, okay. And they still have the choice, as Tom mentioned, to ask for a regular process that involves the Plan Commission. I think it's a great idea. I applaud, as Commissioner Rankin said, whoever it was that dreamed this up, and hope you keep thinking that way, because that's one of the things about lean. You watch the things you're doing, look back in the rearview mirror and ask if it's necessary, if it can be done differently, if it's necessary to be done at all. And we've identified a situation with 2 years and 36 out of 36. This is a great move, and I appreciate you guys for working hard at trying to find it and bring it to us.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Waldeck?
I see the pendulum on one side on this issue, and I think if we go as is, we're moving the pendulum totally the other way. And I agree with Commissioner Schnell. We're talking about transparency, and is there a lot of cost to maybe just putting this on a consent agenda, or putting it for a period of time, a limited period of time in the manager's report, so it is public? Not necessarily going through the Planning Commission and adding the costs and the fees. It doesn't cost much to put it on a manager's report. What could it cost? Or even on a consent agenda. I mean, we approved it tonight. You got it on Friday. Council approved it on Tuesday. So it's not really a big deal, but I think the transparency and notice is I think, just one little step that I think we can take. Minimal cost, minimal time, and it does protect against some possible abuses, and I don't know exactly what those abuses would be, and maybe it is just transparency and notification. But I'd rather err on the side of transparency and maybe going an extra week or two at minimal cost, rather than swinging it in totally the other way. Just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Commissioner Rankin?
From a personal standpoint, being involved in doing an addition on our home, there's so many steps that have to occur before you can start work. And kind of to what you were saying, Mayor Tully, to get a building permit, you do have to ask your neighbors to sign a petition, and you have to ask their...
To knock on their door and talk to them.
Yeah, and they have to sign a letter or you show them a letter about what your project is going to entail. So I believe all that still is going to happen. And Tom, you were saying that this would only be for things that are just normal, run-of-the-mill. Anything
Basically,
that's
right.
out of the ordinary
Right.
would be treated differently.
Correct.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. We don't post a list of all building permits that are pulled. They're not put in the manager's report. There's all kinds of things that we could put on websites that aren't put on websites. We're really talking about notice of a process, and what we're doing is we're changing the process, but all the notice that exists currently with respect to anything that would be actually constructed, or even this itself, is going to be no less transparent than otherwise was before. What we're doing is reducing the burden of the process, and I think there might be little cost to the village, but what we're really talking about, as I think Commissioner Barnett touched on, is the cost to the person pursuing the project, and you betcha there's a cost to that. But let me start off with this. Obviously, anytime I see anything on an agenda that talks about consolidation, I get excited. That's one of the 3 C's. This makes a lot of sense, because certainly Commissioner Schnell and I were here back in the heyday of the lot splits, where anyone who could carve up a piece of grass in town was before us trying to do that in any way, shape, or form in order to build whatever they could within, and sometimes maybe pushing the limits of what our ordinance allowed. And there was a lot of concern about that. Setbacks, stormwater issues. People were concerned about blocking the sun and proximity to sidewalks, and many, many concerns that arose out of the rash of lot splits that we saw years ago. Well, yes, the pendulum has swung, because now you're not seeing lot splits. What you're seeing, and as we've seen recently, is a push towards lot consolidations. And all those issues, to me, that stem from smaller lots, from carving up land smaller and smaller and then building on it, which might be permitted, but creates challenges that have a cost to this community in terms of stormwater management, construction, inspections. Lot consolidations in many ways, shape, or form, and I'm generalizing, do just the opposite. More land allows for greater setbacks, allows for better stormwater control. We're actually encouraging lot consolidations because it encourages a behavior or a conduct that is beneficial to our community in at least two ways. Number one, I've already mentioned, in terms of more space, better stormwater, setbacks, and so forth. Number two, as was mentioned by one of my colleagues, it also spurs reinvestment in our tax base. By redeveloping properties in a landlocked community, we can help bolster our EAV, which otherwise might not take place. And again, I'm generalizing. And that benefits not only the village, but it benefits our schools, it benefits our park district. So this, in any way you look at it, is something that should be encouraged. And I don't think anyone's saying otherwise. But we also need to encourage that behavior by reducing barriers to doing it. Someone might have the opportunity for a lot split, but if they have to spend 6 to 9 months going through staff and the plan commission, which is brutal to people from what I've heard ever since I've heard that new chairman took over. Just making sure he's paying attention. I'm kidding. He's sitting in the audience.
Who are you talking about?
Great.
Oh, it's in the shadow.
I'll get back to being serious. I mean, it's a long process, and to the extent that you have to prepare documents and have an attorney involved and this person citing it, an architect, and then you have to wait for the plan commission, and then you have to wait for the council. And I realize that it's a simple matter, but where this came from is we were sitting here and we were getting on our active agenda with a 1-week waiting period, a request for a lot consolidation. And we all looked at one another and said, well, this is a great thing. Why shouldn't we approve this? And then we got another one, and another one, and another one. Why are we going through this process for something that essentially we know we want to approve before it ever gets to us? And staff picked up on that and has been moving them to our consent agenda, so they move along more quickly. We're not discussing them on our active agenda anymore. But basically, if they meet the standards, they're going to be approved. So why put the person who is about to engage in a behavior that we want to encourage them to pursue, put them through those rings, put them through those hoops at a cost to them in both time and investment? I'm afraid that it would have it would discourage consolidations that we would like to see take place. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're doing this. Commissioner Barnett brings up another good point. That process also has a cost to the village in terms of the plan commission, planning staff, and everyone in preparing for it. Is it huge? No. But we're all about lean, and we're all about streamlining things where it makes sense to do so. Not in every instance. I think it makes just absolute sense to do it in this instance. And again, we're not talking about lot splits or anything odd. We're talking about a lot consolidation whereby every single person's definition would absolutely be approved, and you know that the minute they walk in to Village Hall and hand the document in the window. Why make them wait 6 to 9 months? Or whatever the process. Maybe it's not that long, I'm exaggerating, but why make them wait 6 weeks for something that at first blush is going to be approved? So that's the reason for this. And I think that it's just a darn good idea, makes a lot of sense, and has all sorts of benefits. But let me address the issue which I hadn't thought of as much as was articulated by Commissioner Waldeck and Commissioner Schnell, and that's the notice issue. And I understand that the question is, before there was obviously notice of that happening because that was before the Plan Commission, that it was before the Village Council, and so yes, there were many opportunities for people to know about it. I don't think it's being done in secret. It just won't be part of a process that process is noticed. As the Plan Commission meeting is noticed, the Village Council meetings are noticed, but the action itself is going to be no less transparent or publicly available as it would anything else. As I mentioned, a building permit right now, we don't put in the manager's report. Yet I'm sure there are people who would be really curious to see what every building permit said, and they could obtain those, but we don't put them in the manager's report. It doesn't serve a purpose. And the real issue, I believe, that anyone in the neighborhood is going to be concerned about is not the lot consolidation, because they're probably going to like that. We got people coming up here opposing the lot splits. The lot consolidations, I haven't heard a peep from anybody complaining about. What they might be interested in is what's going to be built on that expanded parcel. And from that point on, as far as I can tell, all the same notice requirements to the public are exactly the same as what they are currently. building permit, whether it's commercial, if you're asking to do anything in terms of variances, setbacks, all that's going to go through the same process. So to the extent that anyone has an objection to what the redevelopment will be, all the same opportunities will exist. Same notice requirements will exist, nothing will change. The only thing will be that there won't be notice of a hearing at which that consolidation might be on the agenda. So I don't necessarily agree that there's less transparency or less notice of anything that's material. But it's a workshop, so I was kind of thinking out loud, and I appreciate the indulgence. Other questions or comments on this from members of the council? Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, are there other communities that are actually doing this, what's being proposed?
Yes, and locally, Village of Lombard uses this, and Tom and I have both worked in places that have similar staff-level administrative approvals of consolidations.
And it's worked smooth, so the concerns and notifications and awareness and that really didn't come into play in those communities that you're familiar with or our neighbor just to the north?
That's correct. I mean, you know, there's the concept of by right construction, things that you can do that clearly meet all the village's policy direction and codes, and so you can do them.
That's kind of what this is.
Lot consolidations, think of this as by right subdivision
Consolidation.
process, because you're actually taking small lots and making them bigger, which is exactly what every policy we've put in place in the last 10 years is designed to do, from zoning to building to subdivision to stormwater utility. So think of it as a by right process, similar to by right construction.
Okay.
That's a good way to describe it.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Brings us to item D.
We'll go to item C, which is a resolution.
No, brings us to item C. Just making sure you're paying attention.
I had to double check myself there. Item C is a resolution concerning a village council travel and training reimbursement policy. This policy was discussed in some detail at the May 7th, 2012 Finance and Administrative Committee meeting. The policy generally reflects current practices, and now they are simply documented. The staff will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, any members of the audience with respect to the village council policy regarding village council travel and training? Questions or comments from members of the village council? Commissioner Neustadt.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I'm glad to see that now we actually have the policy to follow. We've had different operations and practices, but now we are quantifying it into a policy. It won't be much of a surprise to my colleagues to hear that there are some parts of this that I agree with and others I don't. The major issue I have is with the out-of-state travel allotment for village council. I think that it would be more appropriate for us to follow the same guidelines that we use for our staff, and unless needed for certification or it's the only sole source of training, our staff is not allowed to travel out of state for training issues. I respect the desire to learn more and become better council members, and I think that costs associated with the attendance at the meetings for the conference dues or the the registration fees is fine. I just have a personal issue with the travel out of state policy. So again, that's not a real big surprise to my colleagues, but I do appreciate the work that's gone into this and the conversations in the past to get to a point where we can have a policy to vote on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to clarify, your issue is you would, if it was up to you, you would not allow for any out-of-state travel by any members of the council unless it was something that was uniquely located out of state. In other words, you couldn't duplicate it within state.
No, I don't think that I would appreciate any out-of-state travel. I know
Just
National League of
period.
Cities is usually not in Chicago or in Illinois or Springfield, so I think purely for us, it's great to get training, but is it a requirement of our position as council members? I don't feel that way. I think there are things that can be gained at those conferences, but unlike a license that may be held by a police officer or firefighter that has to go for training, they may only be able to go to out-of-state training because that's where the only training is. For us, training is a luxury. I think it'd be great if we all had opportunities to go to the training out of state or anywhere, but it's not a requirement of a council.
Well, I understand. I was just looking, okay, I appreciate the clarification. So basically, it's just, there should be no training at all.
No. if there's a training seminar that somebody wants to go to out of state, the village could then pay for the registration or conference fee.
But not the travel.
The travel expense from O'Hare or Midway or wherever to XYZ state. That's the issue that I
just
have.
wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Barnett?
Without repeating, I'll echo Commissioner Newstadt's thoughts. Mine matches on the subject. But there's been already, I think, 2 other meetings that this group has had on the subject, and I think that what's here accurately reflects the kind of the majority consensus that would have been arrived and through listening to those conversations. So I appreciate staff's work. Once we have something, it's a starting point. It's a point to make sure we're all clear and starting from the same assumptions and presumptions, and that's a good thing. So I'm glad we have this. I likely will sometime down the road try and arm twist and talk everybody into some changes that coincide with Commissioner Newstadt's, but for the moment, I'm glad we're making some progress and getting something on paper.
Thank you. Commissioner, other comments from the council? Just for my part, one, I wholeheartedly agree that I'm glad we have a policy, because one of the biggest problems we had is that there may have been differing expectations or whatnot, because there wasn't a one place where one could look and say, here are the rules. So I welcome that. I think that's terrific, and thank you for staff for bringing it forward, and thank you for all the council and participating and coming up with something, because there are bits and pieces that we may have differences of opinion on, but overall this is a compromise or a consensus document, if you will, that I think we all recognize that we need to have a policy. So that's terrific. And the only other one is just so people know what magnitude we're talking about here. The entire total amount for all council members for all, whether you want to call it training or whatnot, of this category proposed for fiscal year 13 budget, which is what we're going to be talking about next. The grand total is $3,500.
That's correct.
The aggregate. I mean, that's all in, just so everybody understands the order of magnitude. But even with that, it's important to have clear definitions to what is permitted and what isn't. So thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, now we can go to item D.
Which is the continuing discussion of the proposed FY13 budget. Remember that the FY13 budget includes 4 key points. Number 1, it implements the stormwater utility. Number 2, it reduces the village property tax levy by nearly $2 million. Number 3, it includes a balanced general fund, which is our primary operating fund. And 4th, it continues to allow us to invest in needed infrastructure improvements pursuant to our strategic and long-range financial plans. We have been discussing this proposed budget for a couple weeks now. It started a few Saturdays ago with a budget workshop. It was also discussed last week at the village council meeting. There is a coffee with the council this Saturday, 9 a.m. at Fire Station 2. This Saturday, 9 a.m. at Fire Station 2. We will then proceed to a public hearing on the proposed budget on November 6th. At that time, the village council could choose to approve it anytime starting with November 6th or beyond, but it does have to be approved prior to the end of the year. We've had a couple of questions that came up during our previous discussions. Those questions have, and their associated answers have been posted on the village website. You can find them there. We're happy to answer any other questions that may come up during this process.
Thank you very much. This, right now, is the 3rd public meeting that we have had on the proposed fiscal 2013 budget, and the 3rd meeting at which we've entertained public comments. As the manager mentioned, there will be a 4th meeting on Saturday morning for those who can't make it here tonight, and then we will have a public hearing proper. Not that our other ones aren't proper, but an actual public hearing, agenda item style, on the budget, which of course looks like this, on November 6th, and that will be the 5th opportunity for public comment. And of course, there's always opportunity for public comment at any point in time along the way. You can probably guess by now I'm encouraging public comment, and that's why we're providing so many opportunities. So with that, I will start off by asking if any of those here in the audience tonight have any comments or questions with respect to the proposed fiscal 2013 budget. There will obviously be other opportunities, but we invite you to speak what's on your mind now. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, again, Council. Tom LeCren, 545 Chicago Avenue. I'd like to suggest that the possibility of a policy that states the fact that any line item in the budget over a certain amount of dollar amount should be readily identifiable in here. Case in point is the dues for the DuPage Managers and Mayor's Conference. That's buried under the village clerk's office, other professional services on page 5-3, but it's not identified as a separate line item. So if you asked how much have we budgeted for the DuPage Met, you won't find it in here. So I'm suggesting that perhaps a certain, over 30,000 or 40,000 or something, be identifiable. And they've done a good job in other places on here, in other department summaries, where they said professional services includes this. They've expanded that. Or, where it's significant, add it. There's no comments under the village clerk's office as to what, there's $261,000 for professional services. I have no idea what it goes for, other than having asked Dave and found out where the DuPage Managers. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's a fair question, although keep in mind that we actually have to vote on renewing our membership in either DuPage Mayors and Managers or any similar organization, and so those dollars are not spent until there's a workshop, there's a vote, and obviously it's going to be spelled out to the penny in advance at that point in time. And there are other things within the budget that aren't broken down that level of detail, but they don't actually happen, much less get paid for, until there's public notice, opportunity for comment, and the precise amounts are publicly broadcasted.
It's important to note that anything $15,000 or over has to come before this council for action, as the mayor described. So that concept is in place. It's just not on a line item in the budget. I do want to encourage people, though, anybody watching, anybody who ever has a question, we happily answer and post any response. We want to make sure people understand how their public dollars are being spent. So I've already answered that question for Mr. LaCren, as he mentioned. We're happy to answer any other line item type questions anybody may have.
As long as he asked what was the last membership amount that we paid for our participation in DuPage Mayors and Managers.
$36,000 and some change, give or take.
Okay, well, and then we budgeted for about that amount for next year?
That is correct.
And obviously that will have to come before the council before it's renewed in a very specific manner. But thank you for that question, Mr. LaCren. Other questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to the proposed fiscal 2013 budget? Any comments or questions from members of the council with respect to the 2013 budget? Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. I made some comments last week, and no sense in repeating them now, and we'll be talking about this more later. Public has an opportunity to review the budget. I do encourage it. Traditionally, what we do is we put it like in a manager's report or somewhere in there where there's a discussion on the budget, and it's called discussion on the budget. This is the first time we've called it, and something that we annually vote on is an ordinance adopting the fiscal year budget in lieu of a passage of an appropriation ordinance. What is life like under an appropriation ordinance? And if you don't want to get into that
I don't know. I've only worked in municipalities that have a budget process, so we can find out what the appropriation process is.
Not that I want to switch, it's just that we've changed the language. And,
I believe it's more similar to the state process, I believe, but we can check into that.
Okay.
Evans, we don't want that.
Yeah, I would actually prefer, if in the future we go back to the under manager's report or something, budget discussion, something simple. Thanks.
Sure, thank you, Commissioner.
That's all I have.
Other questions? I'm actually looking at the Illinois Municipal Budget Law, which will answer the question, but you stopped talking too fast. Other questions or comments, Commissioner Barnett?
Just, Dave, could you make sure to, sorry.
Sir.
Could you just make sure to circulate my note from the other day?
Yes.
There's no secret. I had asked for a series of additional, primarily a lot of additional reference data that's more historical. No particular policy questions in that relative to the 2013 budget, but rather a series of information I was chasing, and Dave, I'm sure will pass that around to everybody.
And we will post it on the website when it's ready in a couple weeks.
Sure.
Thank you. 50 ILCS 330. Other questions or comments from members of the village council about the fiscal 2013 budget? Obviously, we've already had many conversations on this topic, and we'll have many more, so the lack of comment shouldn't be construed as anything other than this is a continuation of an ongoing process.
And that is
All right, very
our
good.
first reading. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. That then brings us to item 9 on the agenda, the mayor's report. And first, you'll notice this is the first agenda we've had in about a year-ish that hasn't had a pre-typed, pre-printed segment for ComEd report. And that's just so everyone knows. Last week, I announced that we're not, doesn't mean that the issue's gone away or it's any less of importance for us. But rather than doing the weekly report outs, we will be doing periodic report outs either on a quarterly basis or when there's something significant to report out. And so that's the only reason why it's been taken off the agenda. That doesn't mean there won't be report outs when there's something significant to discuss. We did just have our second town hall meeting with ComEd executives not that long ago. We undoubtedly will be having some follow-up to report from that meeting, but just not tonight. The only thing I'm going to mention is, and some others may want to weigh in on this too, we had an item on our consent agenda tonight with respect to the Grove Street reconstruction project. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's gotten questions from some residents as to why is that taking so long? Why is it sitting there? Winter's coming. We're not crazy about this. And it may be appropriate to talk a little bit about what happened and why it was outside of our control. Because there was a change order, not just a timing issue, but there's a cost issue that stemmed from a change in state law.
Correct.
Which I'll let Manager Fieldman and staff speak to more specifically. But the current schedule for the completion of that project, I believe, is on our website.
That is correct, and the schedule calls for the majority of the project, everything except landscaping and restoration, to be done this December. Remember, those are paver bricks that are going in, so we can work past the traditional cutoff line of Thanksgiving. So we will be working, our contractor will be working into December, but the majority of that project is scheduled for completion still this calendar year. We were delayed because of a change in a state regulation that deals with how we handle the soils that are coming off of that site. The Illinois Environmental Protection Agency changed some of the regulations after we entered into the contract, which affected how certain portions of this site, the soil coming off of it, had to be handled and disposed of. That is the reason for the change in scope that was beyond our control, and it is also the reason for the change in cost and the change order that was on here tonight. I guess the best way to describe this kind of concept is what Commissioner Barnett has referred to as force majeure, things outside your control. In every contract we're familiar with, force majeure includes a change in state law that affects the cost of the project. So this is the sort of quintessential force majeure. We will continue to comply with state laws, and we'll continue to get this project constructed this year.
Right, thank you. I appreciate that because a lot of people have been asking about it. Commissioner Schnell?
Can I ask you a question? What is the contingency plan if we get a snowstorm between now and December when this is supposed to be done? I mean, how are those people going to get down their street with snow on the ground and get to their homes?
That is a great question. We'll see if Andy knows the answer to that question on his feet, and if he does not, we'll get you an answer.
It's just more, I think we need to communicate well with the residents on that street. And, you know, as things get colder and chances of having a snowstorm before December is probably high. And I'm letting Andy's not even going to come up and try to answer.
He confirmed that we'll get a written plan to council and to the neighbors.
That's fine, that'd be great.
Well, and it's a fair question because it's not just the residents, it's also the churches that are located there,
well,
and businesses.
anybody who's
so
on it.
There's a lot of people that are probably very interested in the progress of the project. So I wanted to point out not only the when, but the why.
I think it's more than the progress of the project. I think it's, if the project doesn't happen, because, I mean, obviously they're pavers, but pavers can't be laid over 3 inches of snow.
Correct.
What is the contingency plan in place? Because it isn't going to be done until December. That's all I want to know.
Okay.
We have time.
We'll get some information.
Fair question.
We'll also post that on the construction updates.
And if we can somehow, like, notify.
Sure.
Thanks.
We'll do.
Thanks. Commissioner Barnett?
Mayor, it's kind of your report, but I appreciate you letting me jump in on their coattail here. This was something that I wanted to highlight as well. Dave's certainly given us the quality technical answer, and we'll get some more for Commissioner Schnell to be sure. But I wanted to raise sort of the awareness to whatever degree we can sitting up here. This is another one of those, things you hear a lot in general politics about unfunded mandates. You hear about taxes. Everybody thinks they pay too much. This is an example where administratively, so non-elected officials with the Illinois EPA just decided to make a change in the rules, and effective immediately, it's $30,000 cost to the village. That goes on every day from almost every level of government beyond Downers Grove. And the unfortunate thing is, we don't have a choice. We talked a lot about this with stormwater. It's effective there too, but this goes on and on and on. And I just, I'm going to whine a little bit because I'm representing the village of Downers Grove. But this is going to take a project that was under budget to be sort of a model for our community, and it's going to move it over budget and delay it by 45 days-ish. And to Marilyn's point, maybe make it in jeopardy, certainly from a weather standpoint, because some unelected folks in Springfield decided to change the rules midstream. And I'm sure there is some reasoning behind that. I don't want to sound like I don't appreciate the EPA, because I do. But a year ago, this would have been fine to do just as we were planning on 6 months ago. And a year ago, it would have been under budget and under time. Now it's over budget and over time. And I suspect that nobody's lives are different in Downers Grove, but for the fact that they're going to have to pay a little bit more to get their street paved. And so, if you sense a little bit of angst or a little bit of anguish or whining or whatever, you're right, it's here, but I think it's important that all our residents recognize some of this. It is some of the things that our staff and our council have to deal with every day that are not planned, not foreseeable even, and really impact every one of our residents, because it changes the amount it costs for this village to provide the services that everybody's planning on getting. So it's, get off my soapbox. Thank you, Mayor.
No, well said, and I raised it for that reason, not only so we communicate to our residents what's going on and why. It's not just costing us as taxpayers, but it's also costing a lot of irritation and cost we don't even aware of in terms of the impact of that project taking longer than it should. So I think a fair amount of whining is entirely appropriate. And speaking of unfunded mandates, you're right. This is something that we deal with all the time, where the rules change or some obligation is imposed upon us as a municipality, usually by someone outside of our borders, and it has a cost, a real cost to us, and yet we don't have a whole lot of say in whether it happens or not in the first place, and we're certainly not provided with any funds to offset the cost. But unfunded mandates, of course, aren't limited to Downers Grove. They're not unique to Downers Grove. It's something that happens and affects pretty much all municipalities. And just speaking of DuPage mayors and managers, I just want to point out that the DMMC has started, and in fact, it's met several times now, an unfunded mandates task force. The idea of which is to identify those that can actually, we might be able to do something about either lessening the impact or eliminating them altogether. And obviously there's a fair amount of, you have to be realistic and what's feasible and what can be done. Some of it might end up being part of a legislative initiative, but this is a problem that it happens, we complain about it, whether we're successful or not or whatnot on a regional basis, we're trying to do something about it. And in fact, that list of unfunded mandates that we think are actually something that can be addressed in some fashion is going to be developed pretty soon. I know we're participating in it, and we'll make sure that this one's on the list as a good example of a real cost that had a real impact, and how can we potentially avoid or ameliorate these things in the future. Well, that's all I had on my report, unless anyone else wanted to comment on Grove Street. Very good. Manager's report, please.
I had an update on Grove Street, but I think we just covered that, so no further report.
Sorry. Very good. It brings us to item 11, Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Only 2 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance establishing provisions for lot consolidation, and a second is an ordinance approving a redevelopment/sales tax rebate agreement between the Village of Downers Grove and Napleton Gold Coast Imports, Inc. They will both appear on the next active agenda.
Terrific. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 12, Councilmember reports and new business. As I've now established the custom, we will take any new business first. If any council members have any new business they would like to bring forward to the council. Hearing no business, Councilmember reports. We'll start with Commissioner Neustadt this time.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we won't be meeting until November again, I just want to announce the Downtown Downers Grove Spooktacular Weekend will be taking place Friday, October 26th through Sunday, October 28th. Lots of great events downtown that weekend. Moonlight Madness on Friday. A great pancake breakfast that I think someone else will tell us about on Saturday, followed with, or in conjunction with window painting. And then on Sunday, a costume parade from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. in downtown Downers Grove. So lots of great things to do on the weekend of the 26th through 28th to celebrate Halloween. That's my report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Rankin.
No report.
Thank you, Commissioner Waldeck.
No report, Mayor.
Commissioner Schnell.
The pancake breakfast that's hosted by Helping Girls Navigate Adolescence is on October 27th, the same day as the window painting. It's from 8 to 11 at Ballydoyle's. It's just a great way to have fun with your family. Go have something to eat either before or after you do the painting of the windows, and it just makes for a great family day. So please come out, support a great organization. Thanks to Ballydoyle's for once again hosting it, because I know it takes a lot of cleanup and a lot of work to help help HUNA make this happen. So thank you to them, and thank you to the council members who will be serving. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Durkin?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I had the opportunity this year to be a spectator and witness the silent parade. Normally, I've been fortunate enough where I've been able to ride along with our staff in the parade, but this year I was able to witness it and to be able to be out there, you know, with my little guy and watch his excitement as the fire trucks and everybody drove by with all their lights going, and just a number of, you know, departments that came out for our parade. Especially since we know that we were instrumental in starting that parade how many years ago under former Fire Chief Rossetti. But, you know, it was just awesome to see not only the participation, but all the residents that came out from all over to witness it, and to be able to talk to people in other towns that have watched it. And, you know, it's become a family ritual where they actually are there for that particular day and that particular time, and that whole entourage goes past their home. It's just awesome. So it's a great tribute, and I thank our staff for their participation, and also with the Fire Prevention Week, where we were able to participate and witness the live burns and other various activities at Fire Station 5. So thank you for all those and staff that made that happen. It wouldn't be the fall if we didn't have HGNA pancakes, and it wouldn't be the fall season if I didn't sit up here and ask you for your help. And the help I ask you for is my common request every year at this particular time, and that is that the leaves have fallen. And I ask, if you have a drain, a sewer outlet or inlet, manhole cover, whatever you want to refer to it as in your curb line, please take a minute and sweep the leaves away. We're doing the best we can with our street sweeping. Residents are doing the best that they can, especially since it's drying out a little bit, to get the leaves out. But if you have the opportunity, majority of our flooding has happened in the month of October and November, and it's because we have drain holes that are clogged, and it's because of leaves. So if you can, please just rake them up, move them out of the way so we can get the water out of the way. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnett?
Mayor, I just have one thing to kind of circle back around to our Cub Scout question. In 1873, this is from DuPageHistory.org. In 1873, approval was given for village incorporation. The vote was 49 to 38. Sounds just about like today's elections. T.S. Rogers was chosen. T.S. Rogers was chosen first village president. We'll call that mayor, serving 16 years. Operating expenses that year were $600, half spent for streets and alleys.
Really?
And the first sidewalk of 2-inch planks was built along Maple Avenue. So for 130, 140 years, we've been talking about streets and sidewalks and trying to figure out a way for them. That's all I've got, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I was going to run out in the hallway myself a little bit later and verify. A few things to report out. First of all, I want to once again remind everyone that this Saturday we're having a coffee at the council at Fire Station number 2. Anyone has any comments or questions or wants to discuss the proposed fiscal 2013 budget, you can do so in a very informal and relaxed manner. Don't need to get up to the microphones. You can come see us, and we'd love to talk about it. And that's going to be at 9 o'clock at Fire Station number 2 on Saturday. So please come by. And I think the person who sits in this seat for the last 10 years has been saying, please come out, and we'd love to hear from you. So I will continue to do that, as all my colleagues do as well. there's a very significant event that's taking place tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and that is the dedication ceremony for the Belmont Road Grade Separation Project, or otherwise known as the Belmont Underpass. It has been said that good things come to those who wait, and this is a very good thing that has come to a very patient community. There will be quite a few dignitaries and individuals who have been involved along the way for a huge project, a very large-scale, impressive engineering accomplishment that is the underpass. If you haven't had a chance to go through it, I would highly recommend it. It will be dedicated tomorrow, and there will be lots of comments and speeches. I'm sure I won't be given anywhere near amount of time I've already been taken right here. So that's why I just wanted to say, and I will say it again, that it was only possible due to the efforts of many, many people, many prior councils, many prior mayors, who never gave up persisting to get all the pieces in place to make that happen. And it is quite remarkable to actually see it being dedicated. It was remarkable to see it built, and it was more remarkable to drive under it. It's quite an engineering accomplishment, but it's really a tremendous addition to our community. It will have benefits that far go beyond the obvious, which is, of course, greatly enhancing pedestrian and vehicular safety. I think it's just terrific. There are many things that I've had the benefit of seeing in concept and discussion actually come to fruition. Fire Station 2 is one of them. The parking deck's another one. The Belmont Underpass is certainly one that 10 years ago folks would have said, good luck making that happen. So it's really a terrific event, a terrific milestone, and the number of people who were involved in that process over the last decade or so are almost too numerous to mention, but I think all of them, or most of them, will probably be at the ceremony tomorrow. So if you'd like to come out and check that out, I believe it starts at 10 o'clock tomorrow, and word has it the governor himself will be in attendance. So there you go. Just as important.
You meant Romney, right?
What's that?
Governor Romney?
I think both the president and Governor Romney are going to be debating on opposite sides of the tracks. I wouldn't be surprised. Another very impressive accomplishment I just want to share is there was a press event that took place today at Downers Grove South High School to celebrate and acknowledge one of our own residents, Josiah Williams, who's a student at Downers Grove North, who has been chosen as a member of the prestigious U.S. Army All-American Marching Band, a national honor ensemble for outstanding musicians, scholars. Only 125 students are chosen from the thousands and thousands that apply to be part of this All-American, U.S. Army All-American Marching Band. And only students who demonstrate superior musical ability, academic achievement, and positive standing in the community are selected to represent their school. Josiah is a trombone player, and there are only 8 trombone players in this band, so he is one of 8 nationwide to have been selected. Very elite group, very, very selective process, and there was a big, what do they call them, assembly at the school today. I've been out of high school for a while. Big assembly at the high school today. Representatives from the local recruiting station as well as the national representatives of this organization that came in from different states to bestow this honor upon Josiah. Congressman Judy Biggert was the keynote speaker. State Representative Patty Bellock was there. I was allowed to stand in a corner of the stage and share with Josiah our pride in him and the Downers Grove South Music Program for giving him the platform by which to achieve this accomplishment. It's really a big deal, and the marching band members are sent to San Antonio, Texas in January to perform for thousands of active duty military members at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl, a football game that is made up of high school seniors from around the country. So it's something that when the time comes, you can actually watch the game online, but I just wanted to extend our congratulations as a community to Josiah Williams and his parents and Downers Grove South and the Marching Mustangs for making this possible. Quick transition. I want to congratulate Downers Grove South once again. You must be loving this, Commissioner Durkin. Had their annual Marching Mustang Bowl this past weekend and somehow got the competition in between all the rain. Always an impressive event. I wasn't able to attend all of it, but there's nothing that gets your blood going on a cold night than watching some outstanding marching bands from all around the region, and you get to see the Mustangs, Marching Mustangs, demonstrate their skills and talents, although they're not allowed to participate as a host of the competition. They do a couple of exhibitions. It's really a great event, so I'm glad they continue to do that, and it supports the Strong Band program at Downers Grove South. One last event to mention, and that is, of course, hopefully this one won't be rained out, unfortunately, like Running with the Leopards was this last weekend over at Lester School, but the Family Shelter Service here in Downers Grove, which provides support and help for victims of domestic abuse, will be holding their annual race. It's a 5K, 10K race this year. It starts and ends from Downers Grove North. That takes place this Sunday, October 20th. Do I got the right? Well, it's this Sunday, October 21st, excuse me. I was looking at where you could pick up your packet. October 21st, which is Sunday, starting at 8:30 a.m. Check-in begins at 6:30, and again, it's at Downers Grove High School. Starts at the track, runs through the neighborhoods, and comes back. Hopefully, if I see any leaves in any gutters, I will stop long enough to pick them up.
Do it after the race.
Another great event to support a great organization and cause here within Downers Grove. And last, since we won't be seeing anyone again until November, I just want to wish all our residents a very happy and safe Halloween. Be careful when you're out there when the kids are trick-or-treating, and even some adults walking around in costumes. So, happy, safe Halloween, everyone. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.